I moved back to Willow Pines expecting peace. After a decade in Chicago's legal grind, my father's declining health brought me home. Our family ranch, 400 acres of open Texas land, was more than property. It was legacy. My great-grandfather built the farmhouse with his own hands. Every oak tree, every rusted fence post held a story. I came back to bury my father, to heal, and maybe to find myself again. The subdivision next to the ranch hadn't existed when I left. Now, tidy beige homes with perfect lawns stretched in rows where our cattle used to graze. It was called Silver Creek Estates. The name sounded harmless enough. HOA pamphlets bragged about exclusive community standards and a commitment to aesthetics. What they didn't mention was Judith Colburn, the HOA president who wore pastel suits like armor and greeted neighbors with the same warmth as a tax audit. She introduced herself the first week I returned. I was walking Duke, my retriever, along the gravel trail bordering our land. "Excuse me," she called out from her golf cart, clipboard in hand. "Are you aware that leash laws apply here?" I paused. "We're not in your HOA," I said calmly. "This is private property. Been in my family since 1911. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. Property lines are often misunderstood. We'll be reviewing boundaries soon. Then she drove off, muttering something about violations. That was the start. Small things, at first notes on my gate about unauthorized fencing. HOA flyers slipped into my mailbox, even though I wasn't a member. Then came the letter. Certified, official looking. It claimed the land had been abandoned for over 7 years and was now under review for adverse possession. The return address, Silver Creek HOA. My hands shook as I read it. Abandoned. My father died 3 months ago. He lived on that land his entire life. I'd been paying the taxes, maintaining the fences, even filing wildlife reports with the state. I'd left my job to care for him. And now someone wanted to steal everything. I drove straight to the HOA office, which was a retrofitted model home on the edge of the subdivision. Judith met me at the door, her smile tighter than ever. "Mr. West," she said, ushering me inside. "Let's talk like civilized adults." I laid out my documents, deed, tax receipts, utility bills. "This is my land," I said. "You have no legal claim." Judith didn't even look at them. She pushed forward a different folder. Inside were blueprints for an expansion project phase 3 of Silver Creek. My family's ranch was marked as future residential development. Lot numbers were already assigned. "You can't build houses on land you don't own," I said. "Oh, but we do," she replied sweetly. "Under Texas adverse possession law, we've filed a claim. Our records show no residency, no activity. As far as the county's concerned, it's been vacant." I was a lawyer. I knew the law, and I knew she was lying. But I also knew this wouldn't be a simple fight. Judith wasn't stupid. She was strategic, and someone was helping her. Things escalated fast. A week later, construction vehicles showed up at the edge of the tree line. A survey crew hammered stakes into the ground around the barn my father built. When I confronted them, They handed me a notice taped to a stick clearing scheduled for Thursday. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. My father hadn't even been gone 100 days, and they were trying to erase everything he'd protected. I spent nights going through his files, looking for anything that might help. That's when I found the envelope. It was marked emergency only in Dad's handwriting. Inside was a notarized document, a land use clause from 1967. It limited sale or transfer of the ranch until the year 2035, unless signed off by every surviving member of the West family. And only 3 of us were left. The next morning, I returned to the HOA office, armed with the clause. Judith wasn't alone this time. A man in a blazer introduced himself as their legal counsel. He barely looked at the document before smirking. Old provisions like this don't hold up. Courts want to see current use. Intent. I can show intent, I said, my voice low. And I can show fraud. Because this, I tapped the development map, was submitted to the county with falsified ownership records. And I know someone inside helped you file them. Judith's face twitched, just slightly. She reached for her pen. If you insist on pursuing this, we'll respond through proper channels. I filed an injunction the same day. The construction halted, temporarily, but I knew it wouldn't hold unless I proved the forgery. That's when Leo Martinez stepped in, son of the ranch hand who'd worked for my dad 30 years. He was a tech guy now, cybersecurity, freelance. He'd been watching the HOA since they tried to fine his aunt for painting her front door blue. I've been digging, he said over coffee. Judith Colburn isn't even her real name. It's Judith Meyer. She changed it after a development scandal in Arizona. Same playbook, same tactics. She leaves when the lawsuits pile up. He handed me a thumb drive full of email dumps, internal memos. One message from Judith to a local contractor read, "Push the survey line. He'll cave eventually. He's not the fighter his father was." That was it. We took it to the county attorney. Combined with the clause, the emails, and tax records, it was enough to force a hearing. But I didn't stop there. At the next HOA meeting, which they foolishly held at the local rec center, I showed up with copies of every falsified document and the name of the notary who'd supposedly signed them. He was retired, had been for 5 years. When I invited him to speak, Judith turned white. The crowd, mostly HOA residents who had no idea they were part of a scheme, began to murmur. One man stood up and said, "Are you saying my property sits on stolen land?" I let that question hang. Judith tried to shut it down. This is a smear campaign by someone who couldn't handle change, but I'd saved the best for last. Leo had hacked into her cloud account. He projected a folder labeled Exit Strategy. Inside, plans to flip the development to a commercial buyer once enough land was acquired. Residents would be pushed out by increased HOA dues. Just like in Arizona, the room erupted. Within 2 days, Judith resigned. Her legal rep vanished. The county voided the development permits and launched a formal investigation. I'm told they found more than just paperwork fraud. There were kickbacks, shell companies, even embezzled HOA funds. I stood on my porch that evening, looking out at the land they almost stole. Duke lay at my feet, tail thumping gently against the wooden boards. The barn was still standing, the trees untouched. I felt more than victory. I felt peace. Not because I'd won, but because the land was safe. My father's legacy was intact. And now, the residents of Silver Creek, those who'd been lied to, were organizing to reform their HOA. From the inside, I still get letters from people in other towns. How did you fight them? Where do I start? I tell them the truth. You start by knowing what's yours. And then you make damn sure no one takes it from you. Because home isn't just where you live, it's what you're willing to defend.